This is the story of Rebecca Chen, a woman who bought her 16-year-old daughter a DNA ancestry kit for her birthday. It was supposed to be fun, discover your heritage, connect with distant relatives, maybe find out you're 2% Viking. But when the results came back, they revealed something that would shatter Rebecca's entire world. Because according to the DNA test, Rebecca's husband of 18 years, the man who raised their daughter, who cut the umbilical cord, who was there for every milestone, wasn't actually her biological father. And when Rebecca started digging into how this could have happened, she uncovered a conspiracy so twisted, so calculated, that it involved hospital mix-ups, switched babies, and a cover-up that had been hiding in plain sight for 16 years. Before I tell you what that DNA test revealed and how it destroyed not just one family but 3, hit that subscribe button for Story Matrix Hub. Because this story has more shocking twists than you can imagine. DNA secrets, hospital scandals, switched identities, and a truth so devastating that when it finally came out, it made national news. You're going to want to hear every single detail. Now let me tell you about Rebecca, the woman who thought she was just giving her daughter a fun birthday present. Rebecca Chen was the kind of mother who went all out for birthdays. She was 42 years old, a high school biology teacher in Portland, Oregon, married to her college sweetheart David for 18 years. They had one daughter, Sophia, who had just turned 16. Sophia was everything to Rebecca. Smart, beautiful, kind. She had Rebecca's love of science and David's musical talent. She was an honor student, played violin in the school orchestra, volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. The perfect kid, everyone said. For Sophia's 16th birthday, Rebecca wanted to do something special. Something meaningful. Sophia had recently become interested in genealogy. She'd been researching the family tree for a school project and kept asking questions about Rebecca's Chinese heritage and David's Irish-German background. "Mom, do you think I got more genes from you or Dad?" Sophia had asked one night at dinner. "Probably equal," Rebecca said. "Though you definitely got my science brain. And my musical ability," David added with a grin. "And Dad's height. I'm already taller than you, Mom." It was true. Sophia was 5 feet 9 inches, much taller than Rebecca's 5 feet 4 inches. She had David's height and build, long legs, athletic frame. She had Rebecca's dark hair, though hers was straight while Rebecca's was wavy. Her eyes were an interesting hazel, somewhere between Rebecca's dark brown and David's green. She was a perfect blend of both of them, Rebecca thought. Their daughter. So when Rebecca was brainstorming birthday gift ideas, a DNA ancestry kit seemed perfect. It would feed Sophia's interest in genealogy, give her concrete information about her heritage, maybe even connect her with distant relatives. Rebecca ordered the kit from Ancestry DNA, one of the popular consumer genetics companies. It arrived in a small box, a tube for saliva, instructions, a prepaid envelope to mail it back. On Sophia's birthday, after cake and presents, Rebecca brought out one final gift. "One more thing," Rebecca said, handing Sophia the box. Sophia opened it, confused. "What is this?" "It's a DNA test. Remember how you've been researching our family tree? This will tell you your exact ethnic breakdown. How much Chinese, how much Irish, how much German. It might even connect you with relatives you didn't know you had." Sophia's eyes lit up. "This is so cool. Can I do it right now?" "Sure. Just spit in the tube, mail it back, and in 6 to 8 weeks you'll get your results." Sophia did the test that evening, mailed it the next day, and then mostly forgot about it. She was busy with school, friends, violin practice, college prep. Rebecca forgot about it too. Until 8 weeks later, when she got an email notification. "Your Ancestry DNA results are ready." Wait, Rebecca hadn't taken a DNA test. This must be Sophia's results. Rebecca called upstairs. "Sophia, your DNA results are in." Sophia came running down. "Really? Let me see." They sat together on the couch, laptop between them, and logged into Sophia's account. The ethnicity estimate loaded first. Sophia's ethnicity: 52% Northwestern European, Irish, German, British, 31% Eastern European, Polish, Russian, 12% Scandinavian, 5% Southern European, Italian. Rebecca stared at the screen, confused. "Wait," she said slowly. "Where's the Chinese?" Sophia frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm Chinese. You should be at least 25 to 30% East Asian. But there's no East Asian here at all. Maybe it's a mistake? A mistake? How could they mistake Chinese ancestry?" Rebecca's heart was starting to beat faster. Something was wrong. Let me see the DNA matches, she said, clicking to the relatives section. DNA testing companies show you people who share DNA with you. Close relatives, distant cousins, everyone who's taken the test and shares genetic markers. The list loaded. Close family. David Chen, father, 50% DNA shared, Patricia Morrison. Close family, 24.7% DNA shared, Robert Morrison. Close family, 23.2% DNA shared. Rebecca felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. David was listed as Sophia's father. That made sense. 50% DNA match confirmed biological parent. But Rebecca wasn't on the list at all. Instead, there were two strangers, Patricia and Robert Morrison, both showing as close family with DNA percentages that suggested. What? Aunt and uncle? Grandparents? No. Those percentages suggested parents. Mom. Sophia's voice sounded small. Why aren't you on my DNA matches? Rebecca couldn't speak. Her mind was racing through impossible scenarios. Lab error. It had to be a lab error. They'd mixed up the samples somehow. It's a mistake, Rebecca said firmly. The lab must have mixed up your sample with someone else's. But Dad's on here. It matched with Dad. I know, but this is clearly wrong. I'll call the company tomorrow. Don't worry about it. But Rebecca was worried. Very worried. That night, after Sophia went to bed, Rebecca looked at the results again. And again. And again. David came into the bedroom and found her staring at her laptop, tears streaming down her face. Becca, what's wrong? She turned the laptop toward him. Sophia's DNA results came back. Anne, I'm not on them. I'm not listed as her mother. David stared at the screen. That's impossible. That's what I said. But look, you're there. 50% match. Confirmed biological father. But I'm nowhere. It's obviously a mistake. Labs make errors all the time. But David, look at the ethnicity results. No East Asian at all. I'm 100% Chinese. Sophia should be at least 25% East Asian. But she's showing entirely European ancestry. David sat down heavily on the bed. What are you saying? I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying something is very wrong. We need to call the company. Get them to retest. What if it's not an error? Rebecca, you gave birth to Sophia. You were pregnant for 9 months. You pushed her out of your body. How could you not be her biological mother? I don't know. But what if? What if something happened at the hospital? What if babies got switched? Babies don't get switched anymore. They have ID bracelets, security protocols. It happens. I've read about cases. Rebecca, stop. You're spiraling. This is a lab error. That's all. We'll get it sorted out. But Rebecca couldn't stop. Something deep in her gut told her this wasn't a lab error. She'd always felt like Sophia was hers. But now that she thought about it, Sophia didn't really look like her. Not really. She looked like David, tall, athletic, light-eyed. Everyone always commented on how much Sophia looked like her father. She has your eyes, though, people would say to Rebecca, trying to find a resemblance. But did she? Sophia's eyes were hazel. Rebecca's were dark brown. She has your hair. Dark hair, yes. But Sophia's was straight and fine. Rebecca's was thick and wavy. Rebecca had always dismissed these observations. Genetics were complicated. Kids didn't always look like perfect blends of their parents. But now, the next morning, Rebecca called Ancestry DNA customer service. Hi, my daughter took a DNA test, and the results seem wrong. I'm not showing up as her biological mother. The customer service representative was sympathetic but firm. I understand your concern, ma'am. However, our tests are 99.9% accurate. If you're not showing up as a DNA match, that means you don't share genetic material with the person tested. But I gave birth to her. I was pregnant with her. How is that possible? Ma'am, I can't speculate on personal situations. But there are scenarios, hospital mix-ups, IVF errors, surrogacy situations. We didn't use IVF. We didn't use a surrogate. I got pregnant naturally and gave birth to her at St. Mary's Hospital in Portland. Then I would suggest contacting the hospital. We can offer a retest if you'd like, but I should inform you that our margin of error is extremely low. Do the retest. Please. Of course. I'll send you a new kit today. Rebecca ordered 3 kits. 1 for Sophia, 1 for herself, 1 for David. She needed to see all 3 results side by side. While they waited for the kits to arrive, Rebecca couldn't stop thinking about it. She pulled out Sophia's baby photos, her hospital records, her birth certificate. Everything was there. All the documentation proving Rebecca had given birth to Sophia Chen on March 15, 2008, at St. Mary's Hospital in Portland. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. 20 inches long. Born at 3:47 a.m. after 14 hours of labor. Rebecca remembered every moment of that birth. The pain, the exhaustion, the overwhelming love when they placed that tiny baby on her chest. "She's perfect," David had whispered. "She's ours," Rebecca had replied. But what if she wasn't? The new DNA kits arrived. Rebecca, David, and Sophia all submitted their samples. Then they waited another 8 weeks, each day stretching longer than the last. Rebecca couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on work. She was consumed by one question. If Sophia wasn't her biological daughter, then who was? And where was her actual biological daughter? Because somewhere out there, Rebecca's real child might be living with another family, completely unaware that she'd been switched at birth 16 years ago. And when the new DNA results came back, they confirmed Rebecca's worst fear. The first test hadn't been an error. Rebecca Chen had raised the wrong child for 16 years. The second DNA test results came back exactly the same. Rebecca sat at her kitchen table, staring at 3 sets of results. Test 1, Sophia. Biological match with David Chen. Father 50%, no biological match with Rebecca Chen. Mother 0%. Test 2, Rebecca. No biological match with Sophia Chen. 0%. Test 3, David. Biological match with Sophia Chen. Daughter 50%. The science was clear. Undeniable. Devastating. David was Sophia's biological father. Rebecca was not Sophia's biological mother. How? Sophia asked, tears streaming down her face. How is this possible? They'd sat her down that evening to tell her the results. Rebecca had thought carefully about how to explain it, but there was no gentle way to say, "You're not who we thought you were. We think there might have been a mix-up at the hospital when you were born," Rebecca said carefully. "A mix-up? Like I'm someone else's baby? No, sweetheart. You're our daughter. We raised you. We love you. Nothing changes that. But biologically, it appears that another baby might have gone home with us instead of the baby I gave birth to." Sophia looked between her parents, her face crumpling. "So you're not my real mom?" The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow. "I am your real mom. I've been your mom for 16 years. Biology doesn't change that. But you didn't give birth to me." "No. Apparently I didn't. But Sophia, I chose you every single day for 16 years. That makes me your mother more than biology ever could." David reached across and took both their hands. "We're still a family, no matter what." But everything had changed, and they all knew it. After Sophia went to her room, she needed space to process. Rebecca made a decision. "I need to find out what happened," she told David. "I need to know where my biological daughter is." "Rebecca, don't tell me to let it go. There's a girl out there, my daughter, who has no idea she was switched at birth. She deserves to know. I deserve to know. What if she doesn't want to know? What if her family is happy and we destroy that by bringing this up? What if she's unhappy? What if she's struggling and wondering why she doesn't fit with her family? What if she took a DNA test too and discovered the same thing we did?" David was quiet. "I have to find her," Rebecca said. "I have to try." The next morning, Rebecca called St. Mary's Hospital. "I'd like to speak to someone about a birth that occurred in 2008. I believe there may have been a baby switch." She was transferred 7 times. Finally, she reached someone in hospital administration, a woman named Karen Phillips. "Mrs. Chen, those are serious allegations. Do you have evidence?" "Yes. DNA tests showing that the baby I took home from your hospital isn't biologically mine." There was a long pause. "I'll need to see those results. And I'll need to consult with our legal team." "Your legal team?" "I'm not trying to sue you. I'm trying to find my daughter." "I understand, but you're alleging that our hospital made an error that resulted in 2 families taking home the wrong babies. That's a significant liability issue." "I don't care about liability. I care about finding my child. Mrs. Chen, I sympathize. But I can't give you any information without going through proper channels. Email me the DNA results. I'll review them with our team and get back to you within 72 hours. Rebecca sent the results that day. Then she waited. 72 hours passed. No response. Rebecca called back. "I sent you the DNA results. Did you receive them?" "Yes, Mrs. Chen. We did. We're reviewing the situation. Someone will contact you soon." "How soon?" "I can't give you a timeline. This is a complex legal matter. This isn't a legal matter. This is about two families who've been living with the wrong children for 16 years. Mrs. Chen, I understand your frustration. No, you don't. You have no idea what this feels like. Rebecca hung up and immediately called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Patricia Nguyen, a family law attorney who specialized in unusual custody cases. Rebecca had found her through a frantic Google search, lawyer for switched at birth cases. Patricia listened to Rebecca's story, asked detailed questions, and finally said, "This is rare, but not unheard of. We've had a few cases like this nationally. The challenge is that everyone involved, both families, the hospital, has legal interests that may conflict. I don't care about legal interests. I just want to find my daughter. I understand. Here's what we need to do. First, we formally notify the hospital of the error and request their records for all births that occurred around the same time as yours. Second, we look at Sophia's DNA matches, particularly those close family matches that showed up. Patricia and Robert Morrison. If we can find them, they might be your biological daughter's parents. How do we find them? We start with the DNA database. Ancestry DNA allows you to message DNA matches. You can reach out to Patricia and Robert Morrison directly. Rebecca had thought about this. But what would she even say? "Hi, you don't know me, but I think my daughter is your biological child and your daughter is my biological child?" That sounded insane. But she had to try. That evening, Rebecca logged into Sophia's Ancestry DNA account and clicked on Patricia Morrison's profile. Patricia had made her profile public. There was a photo, a woman in her mid-40s with blonde hair and blue eyes, smiling at the camera. Her profile said she was from Portland, Oregon. She'd taken the DNA test to learn more about my European roots. Portland. The same city. That made sense if the babies had been switched at the same hospital. Rebecca clicked send message. She typed and deleted a dozen different versions. Finally, she settled on, "Dear Patricia, my name is Rebecca Chen. My daughter Sophia took a DNA test, and you showed up as a close family match. We're confused by the results and trying to understand the connection. Would you be willing to talk? This is very important. Thank you, Rebecca." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she waited. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. On the 4th day, she got a response. "Rebecca, I'm confused by your message. I don't know anyone named Sophia Chen. But I did take a DNA test recently, and I got some strange results too. My daughter Emma showed up as only a 24% match with me. The company said that's impossible for a biological parent. It should be 50%. I thought it was an error. Can we talk? Here's my number." Rebecca's hands were shaking so hard she could barely type Patricia's number into her phone. She called immediately. "Hello, Patricia? This is Rebecca Chen. I just got your message." "Rebecca. Hi. I don't really know what's going on, but your message made me think maybe my situation isn't a lab error after all. What happened with your daughter's DNA test? She took it a few months ago. When the results came back, she only showed a 24% match with me. My husband Robert showed up as 50%, normal for a biological parent. But I should have shown 50% too. The company kept saying it was impossible, that I must have read it wrong, but I didn't. I only shared 24% DNA with Emma." Rebecca's heart was pounding. "When was Emma born?" "March 15th, 2008. Rebecca gasped. "That's Sophia's birthday." "What? My daughter, the one I brought home from the hospital, was born March 15th, 2008. At St. Mary's Hospital." There was complete silence on the other end. Then, Emma was born at St. Mary's. March 15th, 2008. Both women were quiet, the weight of what they were realizing pressing down on them. "Patricia," Rebecca said slowly, "I think our babies were switched. That's impossible. They put bracelets on them, they have procedures." "I know. But David, my husband, is Sophia's biological father. You're showing as Sophia's close family. Your husband Robert is too. The DNA doesn't lie." "Oh my God. I think I've been raising your biological daughter. And you've been raising mine." Patricia started crying. "This can't be happening. This can't be real. I know. But we need to meet. We need to figure this out. We need to see Emma. You need to see Emma. And you need to see Sophia." They met the next day at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between their houses. Rebecca arrived first, her heart hammering. She'd brought photos of Sophia, baby pictures, school pictures, current photos. When Patricia Morrison walked through the door, Rebecca knew immediately. Patricia was tall, blonde, blue-eyed. Scandinavian features. Exactly the ethnic background Sophia's DNA test had shown. Patricia sat down, her hands shaking. I brought photos of Emma. She laid them on the table. Rebecca looked down at the pictures and felt the world tilt. The girl in the photos was 16 years old. She had dark, straight hair. Dark brown eyes. High cheekbones. Delicate features. She looked exactly like Rebecca. "Oh my God," Rebecca whispered. "I know. I see it too. She looks like you. And when I looked at the photos you texted me of Sophia, she looks like me when I was young. Same build, same hair color, same face shape." They sat in silence, staring at the photos. Two mothers, looking at pictures of the daughters they should have raised. "What do we do?" Patricia finally asked. "I don't know. I've been researching switched at birth cases. There's no roadmap for this. Do we tell them? Do we switch them back? They're 16 years old. We can't just switch them back. They have lives, friends, identities. Sophia is my daughter, even if she's not biologically mine. And Emma is mine." They looked at each other, two women bound by an impossible situation. "But they deserve to know," Rebecca said. "They deserve to know the truth. And they deserve to know each other. How do we tell them? Carefully. Together. And then we let them decide what they want." 2 weeks later, Rebecca and Patricia arranged for their families to meet. It would be the first time the switched daughters would see each other. The first time they'd meet their biological parents. The first time everyone involved would face the truth. 16 years ago, 2 babies had been switched at St. Mary's Hospital. 2 families had raised the wrong daughters. And now, they had to figure out how to move forward with a truth that couldn't be undone. But what none of them knew yet was that the hospital had known about the switch all along. And they'd deliberately covered it up. The meeting was arranged for a Saturday afternoon at Rebecca's house. Rebecca and David had spent the previous week preparing Sophia. Sitting her down, explaining that they'd found Patricia Morrison, explaining that Patricia's daughter Emma might be Rebecca's biological daughter. "So you want to replace me?" Sophia had said, her voice flat. "No. Sophia, no. We love you. We will always love you. You're our daughter. But Emma might be biologically related to me. And you might be biologically related to Patricia. Don't you want to know? Don't you want to meet her?" Sophia had been resistant at first. Angry. Scared. But eventually curiosity won out. "Fine. I'll meet her. But I'm not going to suddenly become their daughter. You're my parents. Always," Rebecca promised. Now, as they waited for the Morrisons to arrive, Rebecca felt like she might throw up from anxiety. David put his hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens, we'll get through it together." The doorbell rang. Rebecca opened the door. Patricia Morrison stood there with her husband Robert, a tall man with red hair and freckles, and between them was Emma. Rebecca's breath caught. Emma looked like someone had photoshopped Rebecca's face onto a teenage body. Same dark eyes, same facial structure, same small build. Her hair was long and straight, pulled back in a ponytail. She was petite, maybe 5 feet 5 inches, and looked nervous. She looked like Rebecca's daughter. "Come in," Rebecca managed. The Morrisons entered. Patricia's eyes immediately found Sophia, who was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, arms crossed defensively. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God!" Because Sophia looked like Patricia. Tall, athletic, blonde highlights in her dark hair, blue-green eyes. She even stood like Patricia, confident, shoulders back. Sophia looked like Patricia's daughter. The two families stood in Rebecca's living room, staring at each other, the truth hanging in the air between them. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice small. "So we were switched?" Sophia nodded slowly. "That's what the DNA says. This is so weird. Tell me about it." Despite the tension, both girls smiled slightly. The ice was broken. Rebecca gestured everyone to sit. The parents took the couches. The girls sat in armchairs across from each other, stealing glances, trying to process. "So," Robert said, his voice steady but emotional, "where do we start?" "I guess we start by acknowledging what happened," Rebecca said. 16 years ago, at St. Mary's Hospital, our daughters were switched. Emma went home with us," she gestured to herself and David. "And Sophia went home with you." Patricia nodded. "And we all raised them without knowing." "How did it happen?" Emma asked. "How does someone just switch babies?" "We don't know yet," David said. "We're trying to get information from the hospital, but they're being difficult." "Of course they are," Robert said bitterly. They're probably terrified we're going to sue them. Are we going to sue them? Sophia asked. The adults exchanged glances. We haven't decided, Rebecca said carefully. Right now, we just want to understand what happened. And figure out what happens next. What do you mean what happens next? Sophia's voice had an edge. You're not sending me to live with them, are you? No. Sophia, no one is sending you anywhere. Then what? Rebecca took a breath. We thought, maybe we could all get to know each other. The girls could spend time together, get to know each other. We could form some kind of weird blended family. Emma interrupted. Like we're all just going to be happy about this? Emma, Patricia said gently. What? You want me to pretend this is fine? That finding out I've been living with the wrong family for 16 years is just fine? We're not the wrong family, Robert said, hurt in his voice. We're your family. We raised you. But I'm not yours. Not really. She is. Emma pointed at Sophia. She's your biological daughter. I'm just the kid you accidentally took home. You're not just anything, Patricia said firmly. You're our daughter. Biology doesn't change that. That's what Rebecca said too, Sophia said quietly. That biology doesn't matter. Emma looked at Sophia. Do you believe that? I don't know. Do you? I don't know either. The two girls stared at each other, mirrors and opposites. Same age, different lives. Connected by biology and separated by circumstance. Can I ask something? Emma said, looking at Rebecca. What was I like? As a baby, I mean. Your biological baby. Rebecca felt tears well up. I don't know. I never knew you as a baby. I knew Sophia. She paused. But I can tell you what Patricia told me about you. Don't, Emma said quickly. I don't want to hear about some baby I'll never remember being. I want to know about now. About you. About why you gave me up. I didn't give you up. You were taken from me. Switched. Same result though, isn't it? I grew up with them, not you. The words were harsh, but Rebecca could hear the pain underneath. This girl, her biological daughter, was hurting. You're right, Rebecca said softly. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first steps, your first words, your first day of school. I'm sorry someone else got to raise you. But Emma, I didn't choose that. Neither of us chose this. Emma's eyes filled with tears. This is so messed up. It really is, Sophia agreed. The meeting continued for another hour. They talked about the basics, medical histories, family health conditions, things the girls should know about their biological families. Rebecca learned that Emma was allergic to tree nuts, something she'd need to know. Patricia learned that Sophia had mild asthma that was well controlled with an inhaler. They learned about each other's lives. Emma was into art and photography. She wanted to study graphic design in college. She was quieter than Sophia, more introverted. Sophia was into science and music. She was applying to pre-med programs. She was outgoing, confident, a natural leader. They were so different. But they'd been shaped by different families, different experiences. Do you think we would have been different? Emma asked Sophia. If we'd grown up with our biological parents? I don't know. Probably. We're products of how we were raised, right? But also genetics. I mean, I'm artistic. Neither Patricia nor Robert are artistic. But maybe Rebecca is? Rebecca nodded. I paint. Not professionally, but as a hobby. See? That's genetic. I got that from you. But I taught you to appreciate art, Patricia said quietly. I took you to museums, encouraged your creativity. I know. I'm not saying you didn't influence me. I'm just saying, maybe I would have been artistic anyway. Because of genetics. The conversation was awkward, painful, full of landmines. Every sentence had the potential to hurt someone. Finally, David suggested they take a break. Why don't you girls go talk privately? Upstairs, in Sophia's room? You probably have things to say without us hovering. Sophia and Emma looked at each other uncertainly, then both nodded. They went upstairs together, leaving the four parents in the living room. As soon as the girls were gone, Patricia started crying. She looks just like you. Sophia. She looks exactly like I did at that age. I know. And Emma looks like me. It's so strange. It's more than strange. It's devastating. I look at Sophia and I think that's my daughter, but I don't know her at all. She's a stranger who has my DNA. Rebecca understood completely. I look at Emma and I see myself, but she doesn't feel like mine. She feels like yours. Because she is yours, in all the ways that matter. So what do we do? Robert asked. How do we navigate this? Carefully, David said. We let the girls lead. If they want to get to know their biological families, we support that. If they don't, we respect that. We don't force anything. And the hospital? Patricia asked. What about them? My lawyer is working on getting records, Rebecca said. We need to know what happened, how this was allowed to happen. And when we find out, then we decide if we want to pursue legal action. Upstairs, in Sophia's room, the two girls sat on Sophia's bed, not quite looking at each other. This is so weird, Emma said. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. Sophia smiled slightly. Fair. They were quiet for a moment. Then Emma asked, Do you hate me? What? No. Why would I hate you? Because I took your place. I got to grow up with your biological mother. You got stuck with mine. I didn't get stuck with Patricia. And you didn't take my place. We were babies. Neither of us chose this. I know, but still. Don't you feel angry? That you missed out on being raised by Rebecca? Sophia thought about it. No. Not really. I mean, yeah, it's weird knowing Rebecca is biologically my mother. But David and Rebecca, she paused, correcting herself. David and my mom raised me. They're my parents. I don't feel like I missed out. Really? Really? Do you feel like you missed out? Emma was quiet for a long time. Then, yeah. Actually, I do. Why? Because Patricia and Robert, they're great. They love me, they've been good parents. But I've never felt like I fit with them. They're both tall and blonde and outdoorsy. They love hiking and camping and sports. And I'm not. I'm short and indoorsy and I like art and books. They tried to get me into sports when I was younger, but I hated it. They were always confused by me, I think. Like they couldn't figure out where I came from. And now you know. Now I know. I came from Rebecca, who's a science teacher and an artist. Who's short like me. Who probably understands me in ways Patricia never did. Sophia felt a twinge of something. Jealousy? So you want to switch families now? What? No. I didn't say that. It sounds like you did. I'm just saying I finally understand why. I never felt like I fit. It's because I didn't. Biologically, I didn't. Biology isn't everything. Easy for you to say. You fit with your family. You're tall like David, scientific like Rebecca, musical like both of them. You belong. Emma, you belong too. With Patricia and Robert. They're your family. Are they though? Or are you their family? The question hung in the air. Finally, Sophia said, I think we can both be their family. And both be Rebecca and David's family. We don't have to choose. Don't we? How does this work? We can't have 4 parents. Why not? Emma laughed, surprised. You're serious? Yeah. I mean, we have 2 sets of biological parents. Why can't we have relationships with both? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You really think that could work? I don't know. But we could try. Emma looked at Sophia, this girl who shared her story but not her life, and felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe this didn't have to be a tragedy. Maybe it could be something else. The meeting ended with tentative plans to get together again. Sophia and Emma exchanged phone numbers. The parents exchanged awkward hugs. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't resolved. But it was a start. What none of them knew yet was that their meeting had triggered something at St. Mary's Hospital. Because the hospital had been monitoring the situation. And they'd just made a decision about how to handle it. A decision that involved lawyers, non-disclosure agreements, and an offer that would force both families to choose. Accept a settlement and stay quiet, or fight for the truth and risk losing everything. 3 weeks after the initial meeting, Rebecca got a call from her lawyer, Patricia Nguyen. Rebecca, I need you to come to my office. Today if possible. I found something. What did you find? Not over the phone. Can you be here in an hour? Rebecca's heart started racing. I'll be there. She called Patricia Morrison. Patricia, my lawyer found something about the hospital switch. She wants to meet. Can you and Robert come? We'll be there. An hour later, all 4 parents sat in Attorney Nguyen's conference room. Patricia Nguyen laid a thick folder on the table. I filed a request for all hospital records related to births on March 15, 2008. The hospital fought me on it, claimed privacy concerns, patient confidentiality. But I got a court order. And what I found? She opened the folder. It's worse than we thought. Worse how? David asked. The hospital knew about the switch. They knew on the day it happened. Rebecca felt like she'd been punched. What? Look at this. Patricia Nguyen pulled out a document. This is an internal incident report dated March 15, 2008. It was filed by a nurse named Sandra Martinez. Listen to this. At approximately 6:45 a.m., I discovered that 2 infant bracelets had been removed and possibly mixed up in the nursery. Baby girl Chen and baby girl Morrison were both in isolates due to slight jaundice. Their bracelets were found on the floor between the isolates. I immediately notified my supervisor, Nurse Linda Hayes. Supervisor Hayes instructed me not to file an official report and stated she would handle the situation internally. The room was silent. They knew, Rebecca whispered. They knew the bracelets got mixed up, and they did nothing? It gets worse. Look at this. Another document. This is an email from Nurse Linda Hayes to the hospital administrator, dated March 16, 2008, 1 day after your births. Quote, "We have a potential baby identification issue from yesterday's births. 2 infants may have been sent home with incorrect families. However, both families appeared happy with their babies, and both babies are healthy. I recommend we do not contact the families unless absolutely necessary, as this could result in significant liability and trauma. We should implement better identification protocols going forward to prevent future incidents." Patricia Morrison looked like she might be sick. They decided not to tell us? They just let us take home the wrong babies. That's exactly what they did. And then they covered it up. Look at this memo from the hospital's legal counsel 2 weeks later, after Nurse Martinez filed a formal complaint. The incident in question has been reviewed. While there was a temporary mix-up in infant identification, both families left with healthy babies and all parties appear satisfied. Contacting families now would create unnecessary distress and legal exposure for the hospital. The nurse who filed the complaint has been reminded of confidentiality policies and counseled on the proper chain of command for reporting concerns. They silenced her, Robert said. They silenced the nurse who tried to report it. Not just silenced, threatened. I found documentation that Sandra Martinez was put on probationary status for creating a hostile work environment and eventually forced to resign 6 months later. Rebecca couldn't breathe. They destroyed her career to cover up their mistake. Yes, and they've been covering it up for 16 years. Until you did a DNA test and discovered the truth. David leaned forward. So what do we do now? That depends on what you want. You could sue the hospital for negligence, emotional distress, loss of parental bonding. You'd likely win. This is clear negligence. But litigation would be long, public, and emotionally draining. What's the alternative? Patricia asked. The hospital knows I found these documents. They've already reached out about a settlement. They want to pay us off. They want to pay you to go away, to sign non-disclosure agreements and never speak publicly about what happened. How much are they offering? Robert asked. Patricia and Gwyn slid a paper across the table. $2 million. To each family. Plus full college tuition for both girls. And lifetime health insurance. Rebecca stared at the number. For $1 million total. Split between 2 families. That's a lot of money, David said quietly. It is. But it comes with strings. You'd have to sign agreements never to discuss the case publicly, never to pursue further legal action, and never to contact Sandra Martinez or any other hospital staff about the incident. They want to keep hiding it, Rebecca said. Yes. What if we don't take the settlement? What if we go public? Then you'd likely face years of litigation. The hospital has deep pockets and expensive lawyers. You'd win eventually, the evidence is clear, but it would dominate your lives. And the girls would be in the spotlight. Every detail of your families would become public. The media would be relentless. The 4 parents looked at each other. I need to think about this, Rebecca said. Me too, Patricia agreed. You have 72 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires. That evening, Rebecca and David sat down with Sophia to discuss the settlement offer. $2 million? Sophia said. That's insane. It's a lot of money, Rebecca agreed. It would pay for college, for grad school if you want, for a house someday. It would change your life. But we'd have to stay quiet about what the hospital did. Yes. So they get away with it. Legally, yes. Though we could still file a complaint with the medical board, report them to regulatory agencies. We just couldn't talk about it publicly or sue them. Sophia was quiet, thinking. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to fight. Wants everyone to know what they did. How they switched 2 babies and then covered it up for 16 years. And the other part? The other part wants to take the money and move forward. Use it to build a good life for you. Not spend years in court reliving this trauma. What about Emma's family? What do they want? I don't know. We're all trying to decide. Sophia pulled out her phone. Let me text Emma. See what she thinks. Rebecca and Patricia Morrison had exchanged contact information, but the girls had been texting on their own, getting to know each other. It was awkward but getting easier. Sophia typed. Did your parents tell you about the hospital settlement? A few minutes later. Yeah. It's crazy. What are you guys thinking? Don't know yet. You. My dad wants to take the money. My mom wants to fight. What do you think we should do? Sophia looked at her parents, the people who'd raised her, who loved her, who'd been trying so hard to navigate this impossible situation. Then she thought about Emma. About Sandra Martinez, the nurse who'd tried to do the right thing and lost her job. About other families this might happen to if the hospital wasn't held accountable. I think we should fight, Sophia said out loud. Rebecca looked surprised. Really? Yeah. I mean, the money would be great. But Mom, they switched us. They knew about it and didn't tell you. They destroyed a nurse's career to keep it quiet. If we take the money and stay quiet, we're part of the cover-up too. David frowned. Soph, this would mean years of litigation. Media attention. Your privacy invaded. I know, but we'd be doing the right thing. And maybe we'd prevent it from happening to someone else. Rebecca felt pride swell in her chest. This girl, this daughter she'd raised, had such a strong moral compass. Let me call Patricia, Rebecca said. See how they're leaning. She called. Patricia answered immediately. Rebecca. Hi. Have you decided? Not yet. But Sophia thinks we should fight. How's your family feeling? Robert wants the money. Emma and we want to fight. So 3 out of 4 want to fight. Looks like it. But Rebecca, this has to be unanimous. If one family takes the settlement and the other fights, it gets complicated. We need to decide together. I agree. Can we all meet tomorrow? All 6 of us, parents and kids. Yes. Let's do it. They met the next day at a neutral location, a private room at a local library. The 6 of them sat around a table, Rebecca, David, Sophia, Patricia, Robert, and Emma. Okay, Rebecca said. We need to make a decision about the settlement. And we need to make it together. So let's each say what we think, and then we'll decide as a group. David went first. I think we should take the money. Not because I don't want justice, but because I want to protect Sophia. Going public means media scrutiny, invasive questions, years of stress. The money would secure her future. Sophia shook her head. Dad, I appreciate that you want to protect me. But I'm 16, not 6. I can handle media attention. And I think staying quiet is wrong. Robert spoke next. I'm with David. I want the money. Emma's college is expensive, and this would solve a lot of financial stress. But Dad, Emma said, what about the principal? What about the nurse they fired? What about making sure this doesn't happen again? Emma, principals don't pay for college. Actually, the settlement pays for college. So whether we fight or settle, my education is covered. This isn't about money. It's about doing what's right. Patricia nodded. I agree with Emma. Yes, the money would be nice. But how do we live with ourselves if we take it? We'd be letting the hospital buy our silence. Letting them get away with negligence and a cover-up. They won't get away with it, Robert argued. We can still file complaints with the medical board, which will get buried in paperwork and result in nothing. The only way to hold them accountable is public pressure. Media attention. A trial. The debate went back and forth for an hour. Finally, Rebecca called for a vote. Everyone who wants to take the settlement, raise your hand. Robert and David raised their hands. Everyone who wants to fight? Rebecca, Patricia, Sophia, and Emma raised their hands. 4-2. Fight wins. Robert looked unhappy. This is a mistake. Maybe, Patricia said gently. But it's the right mistake to make. Rebecca called Patricia and Gwyn. We're declining the settlement. We're going public with this. Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. We're sure. All of us. She glanced at David and Robert, who looked resigned but not opposed. Well, most of us. But we're doing it anyway. All right. I'll notify the hospital. And Rebecca. Yes. Prepare yourself. This is about to get very, very public. Patricia and Gwyn filed a lawsuit against St. Mary's Hospital on behalf of both families. The complaint detailed the switched babies, the cover-up, the destruction of Sandra Martinez's career. Within 24 hours, the media had the story. Hospital switched babies and covered it up for 16 years. The headlines were everywhere. Local news, national news, cable news. The story had everything. Switched babies, teenage girls, a cover-up, a silenced whistleblower. Rebecca's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters camped outside their house. Sophia's school found out. Emma's school found out. Suddenly, the two girls, who'd been trying to quietly navigate this situation, were thrust into the national spotlight. And St. Mary's Hospital? They went into full crisis mode. Denying, deflecting, attacking the families for seeking attention and money. The battle had begun. And it was about to get much worse before it got better. The media firestorm was worse than anyone had imagined. Within a week of the story breaking, Rebecca and Patricia's families were everywhere. Morning shows, evening news, CNN, Fox News, even international media. Everyone wanted to interview the switched babies' families. Some of the coverage was sympathetic. Families seek justice after hospital's devastating error. But some was cruel. Are these families exploiting their daughters for attention? Switched babies lawsuit, greed or grief? The hospital's PR team was working overtime to spin the story. Their official statement read, St. Mary's Hospital deeply regrets any distress caused to the families involved. However, the allegations of deliberate cover-up are false and irresponsible. We are committed to patient safety and will vigorously defend ourselves against these baseless claims. Baseless. They were calling the families' claims baseless, despite the internal documents Patricia and Gwyn had obtained. The case became a media circus. And right in the center of it were two teenage girls trying to navigate high school while their personal lives became public fodder. Sophia handled it with her usual confidence. When reporters shouted questions at her outside school, she'd smile and say, "No comment," politely. When classmates asked invasive questions, she'd shut them down firmly. That's private. But Emma struggled. She was more introverted, more sensitive. The attention overwhelmed her. She started skipping school, stopped posting on social media, withdrew from her friends. "I can't do this," she told Patricia one night, crying. "Everyone is staring at me. Everyone is asking questions. I just want to be normal." "I know, sweetie. I'm so sorry. But it won't be like this forever. When will it end? When the trial is over. When we've told our story and held the hospital accountable. But what if it's not worth it? What if we go through all this and nothing changes?" Patricia didn't have a good answer for that. The trial was set for 8 months after the lawsuit was filed. In the meantime, both sides did discovery, gathering evidence, deposing witnesses, building their cases. Patricia and Gwyn deposed hospital staff members. Most of them claimed not to remember anything about March 15, 2008. It was 16 years ago, after all. But Sandra Martinez, the nurse who'd tried to report the switch, remembered everything. She was in her 60s now, working as a school nurse after leaving St. Mary's. When Patricia and Gwyn tracked her down and explained the situation, Sandra started crying. "I knew this would come out eventually. I knew those families deserved to know." "Will you testify?" Patricia asked. "Yes, absolutely. They destroyed my career to keep me quiet. But I'm not quiet anymore." Sandra Martinez became the key witness. Her testimony would prove the hospital had known about the switch and deliberately concealed it. The hospital's lawyers tried to discredit her. They claimed she was a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind. They pointed out she'd been fired for cause. "I wasn't fired," Sandra corrected in her deposition. "I was forced out. There's a difference. They made my life so miserable after I reported the switch that I had no choice but to resign." "Do you have evidence of this harassment?" "Yes. I kept every email, every write-up, every documented incident they used to justify putting me on probation. I knew someday I'd need it." Patricia and Gwyn could have kissed her. Sandra Martinez had kept a paper trail of her own. Evidence of the hospital's retaliation. Evidence that proved her story. As the trial date approached, both families felt the strain. Rebecca and David's marriage was tested. David had wanted to take the settlement, avoid the stress. Now they were in the middle of a media circus and facing months more of public scrutiny. "I told you this would be too much," David said during one argument. "And I told you it was the right thing to do." "Are you saying we should have stayed quiet?" "I'm saying we should have protected our daughter instead of turning her life into a news story. We are protecting her. We're teaching her to stand up for what's right even when it's hard." Patricia and Robert's marriage was struggling too. Robert had been outvoted on the decision to fight, and he resented it. "We could have had $2 million, he'd say. "We could have been done with this. But no, we had to be noble." "It's not about being noble," Patricia would reply. "It's about justice. Justice doesn't pay the bills. The lawsuit could pay more than the settlement if we win. And if we lose, we get nothing. Nothing but months of stress and public humiliation. But the girls, Sophia and Emma, were united. They'd become close through the shared experience. They texted daily, met up on weekends, supported each other. "How are you holding up?" Sophia would ask. "Barely. You?" "Same. But we're doing the right thing." "Are we though? What if we lose?" "We won't lose. They have the evidence. The hospital knew and covered it up. We can't lose." But Emma wasn't so sure. Finally, 8 months after the lawsuit was filed, the trial began. The courtroom was packed. Media filled the gallery. Both families sat in the front row, Rebecca, David, and Sophia on one side, Patricia, Robert, and Emma on the other. The hospital's legal team was impressive. 5 lawyers in expensive suits, looking confident. Patricia Nguyen sat alone at the plaintiff's table. Well, not alone. She had the truth on her side. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The hospital's lawyers argued that yes, there had been a mix-up with the infant bracelets. But it was an honest mistake, not negligence. And the decision not to contact families afterward was made in the family's best interests, to avoid unnecessary distress. These families seemed happy with their babies, the hospital's lawyer argued. Both infants were healthy. There was no reason to traumatize them with information about a mix-up that had already been resolved. Patricia Nguyen countered. Resolved? How was it resolved? The wrong babies went home with the wrong families. The families had a right to know. Instead, the hospital deliberately concealed the error to protect themselves from liability. And when a nurse tried to do the right thing and report it, they destroyed her career. The most powerful moment came when Sandra Martinez took the stand. She was calm, credible, and devastating. On March 15, 2008, I was working the night shift in the maternity ward. At approximately 6:45 a.m., I entered the nursery to check on the infants. 2 babies, baby girl Chen and baby girl Morrison, were in isolates due to mild jaundice. I noticed their identification bracelets on the floor between the isolates. "What did you do?" Patricia Nguyen asked. I immediately checked both babies. They were fine, sleeping peacefully. But without their bracelets, I couldn't tell which was which. "Why not? Couldn't you tell them apart by looking at them?" "They were newborns. Newborns often look very similar, especially girls. One baby was slightly bigger, one slightly smaller, but I didn't know which was supposed to be which. The bracelets were our identification system." "What did you do next?" "I went to my supervisor, Nurse Linda Hayes. I told her what happened. I asked her what protocol required. Should we do footprint verification? DNA testing? Contact the families?" "What did she say?" "She told me not to worry about it. She said the bracelets probably just fell off and got mixed up, but both babies were going home with their correct families anyway." "How did she know that?" "She didn't. She assumed. And when I pushed back, when I said we needed to verify before discharging the babies, she told me to drop it. She said if I filed an incident report, it would cause problems for everyone, the hospital, the families, me." "Did you drop it?" "Not immediately. I went back later and filed an incident report anyway, because I knew it was the right thing to do." "And what happened after you filed that report?" Sandra's voice cracked slightly. "I was called into a meeting with hospital administration. They told me I'd created an unnecessary problem, that both families were happy and healthy, and I was causing distress for no reason. They put me on probationary status for failure to follow chain of command." "What did probationary status mean?" "It meant I was monitored constantly, written up for minor infractions. My performance reviews became negative. They created a paper trail to justify firing me. After 6 months, I resigned. I couldn't take it anymore." "Did you ever find out if your concerns about the mixed bracelets were valid?" "No. The hospital never did verification testing. They just hoped the problem would go away." She looked directly at Rebecca and Patricia. "And it did go away. For 16 years. Until these families discovered the truth on their own." The courtroom was silent. The hospital's lawyers tried to discredit Sandra on cross-examination. They pointed out she'd been disciplinary problem during her time at St. Mary's. "Isn't it true, Ms. Martinez, that you had multiple write-ups for failure to follow proper procedures?" "Yes. All of those write-ups occurred after I reported the bracelet incident. Before that, I had exemplary reviews." "Isn't it possible you simply weren't a good fit for St. Mary's Hospital? Isn't it possible the hospital retaliated against me for trying to report their mistake?" The lawyer moved on quickly. The trial also featured testimony from Rebecca and Patricia. Both mothers broke down describing what it felt like to discover they'd raised the wrong daughters. To realize they'd missed their biological daughters' entire childhoods. I look at Emma's baby pictures, the pictures Patricia sent me, and I see my own face, Rebecca said through tears. That's my daughter. And I wasn't there. I didn't get to hold her when she cried. I didn't get to see her first steps. Some hospital employees' mistake stole that from me. And then they covered it up so I couldn't even know what I'd lost. The jury was visibly moved. Sophia and Emma both testified briefly. They talked about the confusion, the pain, the identity crisis of discovering their parents weren't biologically their parents. I don't blame my parents, Sophia said. I don't blame Patricia and Robert, who raised Emma. We're all victims of the hospital's negligence and cover-up. The hospital is the only villain in this story. After 3 weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. The hospital was guilty of negligence. The hospital was guilty of intentional infliction of emotional distress. The hospital was guilty of fraudulent concealment. Damages awarded: $8 million to the Chen family. $8 million to the Morrison family. Plus punitive damages, $10 million total. The total judgment, $26 million. The courtroom erupted. Rebecca collapsed into David's arms, sobbing. Patricia hugged Robert and Emma. Sophia and Emma held hands, tears streaming down their faces. St. Mary's Hospital's lawyers immediately announced they'd appeal. But the message had been sent. Hospitals could not switch babies and cover it up without consequences. The verdict made national headlines. Switched babies' families win $26 million judgment against hospital. But the money wasn't the point. The point was accountability, validation, justice, and most importantly, it started a conversation about hospital protocols, infant identification systems, and the rights of families to know the truth, even when the truth was painful. But for Rebecca and Patricia, for Sophia and Emma, the trial's end wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of figuring out how to be a family, or rather, 2 families forever intertwined by a mistake made 16 years ago. 2 years after the trial, Rebecca Chen sat in her backyard watching Sophia and Emma practice violin together. It was a Sunday afternoon. The girls were 18 now, both preparing to start college in the fall. And they were friends, real friends, not just 2 girls bound by unusual circumstances. They'd decided, after months of family therapy and many difficult conversations, to try something unconventional. Both girls would split time between both families. Not 50-50, that would be too disruptive at their ages. But regular visits, holidays together, summers shared. They'd created a blended family that looked nothing like a traditional family tree, but somehow worked for them. Sophia was going to Stanford to study biology. Emma was going to NYU to study art. They'd be on opposite coasts, but they'd promised to stay close. Who would have thought, David said, coming out to join Rebecca, that a DNA test would lead to this? He gestured at the scene. Sophia and Emma playing music together, Patricia and Robert setting up the table for dinner. Everyone gathered like an extended family. It's weird, Rebecca admitted. But good weird. Do you regret it? Everything we went through? The lawsuit, the media, all of it? Rebecca thought about it. No. I regret that it happened at all. That some nurse's mistake stole 16 years from both families. But do I regret fighting? No. We got justice. We got the truth. And we got. She nodded toward the girls. We got them. Both of them. Because that's what had happened over 2 years of family therapy, awkward dinners, difficult conversations, and tentative bonding. Rebecca had gained a relationship with Emma, her biological daughter. And Patricia had gained a relationship with Sophia, her biological daughter. It wasn't the same as if they'd raised them from birth. It never would be. But it was something. Emma had started calling Rebecca Rebecca Mom, to distinguish her from Patricia Mom. It was awkward at first, but it worked. Sophia called Patricia Patricia most of the time, but occasionally Aunt Patricia slipped out. The relationships were still being defined. Still evolving. You know what's funny? Emma said one day when she and Sophia were alone. We both ended up with 2 moms. Most kids complain about having one. We got 2. And we both have the same dad, Sophia pointed out. David is technically my dad biologically. But Robert raised you. So we share David but not Robert. God, our family tree is complicated. We need one of those diagrams with all the lines and arrows. They'd laughed about it. Because if they didn't laugh, they'd cry. The money from the lawsuit had been split as planned. $8 million to Rebecca and David's family, $8 million to Patricia and Robert's family, with the college funds and trust funds set up for both girls. They were set for life financially. College was paid for. Grad school if they wanted it. Down payments on future homes. They'd never have to worry about money. But the money hadn't solved everything. David and Rebecca had gone through rough patches in their marriage. The stress of the lawsuit, the media attention, the complicated family dynamics, it had all taken a toll. They'd done marriage counseling, worked through resentments and fears. And eventually, they'd come out stronger. This whole thing taught me something, David had said during one session. Family isn't just biology. Family is choice. We chose to be a family 18 years ago when Sophia was born. And we choose it every day, even now that we know the truth. Patricia and Robert hadn't been as lucky. They'd separated a year after the trial ended. The stress had exposed cracks that had been there all along. Robert had never fully forgiven Patricia for pushing to fight the hospital instead of taking the settlement. We could have had the money without the circus, he'd say. We have the money and we got justice, Patricia would counter. Eventually, they'd realize they wanted different things. Robert wanted a quiet life, free from complications. Patricia wanted to stand up for what was right, even when it was hard. They'd divorced amicably. Robert had moved to Seattle for a fresh start. He still saw Emma regularly, still called her every week, but the distance had changed things. Emma had taken it hard at first. But she'd had support, from Patricia, from Rebecca, from Sophia. The network of mothers and sisters and almost family that had formed around her. The hospital had appealed the verdict, of course. But the appeals court had upheld the judgment. St. Mary's Hospital had paid the full $26 million, plus court costs. And they'd implemented new protocols. Mandatory DNA verification for all newborns before discharge. Staff training on proper identification procedures. A whistleblower protection policy, so nurses could report concerns without fear of retaliation. Sandra Martinez, the nurse who'd first reported the switch, had been publicly vindicated. She'd been interviewed on 60 Minutes, honored by nursing organizations, and offered her old job back at St. Mary's, which she'd declined. Too many bad memories. But her reputation had been restored, and she'd become an advocate for patient safety, speaking at conferences about the importance of speaking up. You saved those families, an interviewer had told her. No, Sandra had replied. I just tried to do the right thing. They saved themselves by refusing to be silenced. Now, 2 years later, as Rebecca watched the two girls in her backyard, one she'd raised, one she'd birthed, she felt an unexpected peace. This wasn't the life she'd imagined. When she'd bought that DNA test for Sophia's 16th birthday, she'd never dreamed it would lead here. But here wasn't bad. Here was complicated and messy and sometimes painful. But here was also full of love, honesty, and connections that never would have existed otherwise. Mom, Sophia called out. Rebecca, Mom? Can you help us with this part? Both Rebecca and Patricia looked up. Which mom? They said simultaneously, then laughed. Bio Mom, Sophia clarified. We need Rebecca's help with the fingering on this measure. Rebecca walked over to help, leaving Patricia and David to chat by the table. As she showed the girls how to position their fingers, she thought about how far they'd all come. 2 years ago, this scene would have been impossible. Now it was Sunday dinner. That evening, after the Morrisons left, Sophia came to find Rebecca. Can I talk to you about something? Of course. They sat on Sophia's bed, just like they'd done thousands of times over 16 years. I've been thinking about the DNA test, Sophia said. The one that started all this. Yeah. Do you regret buying it? If you could go back, would you? Rebecca took a moment to answer honestly. That's complicated. Part of me wishes we'd never found out. That we could have just kept living our lives, happy in our ignorance. But that wouldn't have been fair. To you, to Emma, to Patricia, to me. We all deserve to know the truth, even if the truth was painful. And she took Sophia's hand. I wouldn't trade the relationship I have with Emma now. I wouldn't trade knowing her. She's my daughter, biologically, and even though I missed 16 years, I'm grateful for the years I'll have going forward. Do you wish you'd raised her instead of me? God, no. Sophia, I loved raising you. Every second of it. You're my daughter in every way that matters. The DNA test didn't change that. But you missed out on raising Emma. I did. And that's sad. But I didn't miss out on raising you. And I can't regret that. Sophia hugged her. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. Both versions of you. Bio mom and raised me mom. I love you both. We both love you too. Later that night, Rebecca got a text from Emma. Thank you for today. I know family dinners are probably still weird for everyone, but they mean a lot to me. I like having two families. Two moms. Two sisters, since Sophia is basically my sister at this point. I know this wasn't what anyone planned, but I'm glad we're here. Emma. Rebecca texted back. Me too. Love you, sweetheart. Love you too, Rebecca mom. Rebecca smiled and put her phone down. She looked at the photo on her nightstand. A recent one from Emma's 18th birthday. All 6 of them together. Rebecca, David, Sophia, Patricia, Robert, and Emma. A family that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Next to it was Sophia's baby photo from the hospital. The first picture ever taken of the daughter Rebecca had raised but hadn't birthed. Both pictures were precious. Both represented love. And that, Rebecca had learned, was what family really meant. Not biology. Not DNA. Not who gave birth to whom. But choice. Commitment. Love that persisted even when everything got complicated. That's the story of Rebecca Chen, the mother who bought her daughter a DNA test and discovered a 16-year-old secret that destroyed one lie and created a new truth. What started as a birthday gift became a national news story, a landmark lawsuit, and a lesson in what family really means. Would you have bought the DNA test? Would you have fought the hospital? Would you have been able to build relationships with your biological child after 16 years apart? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. And if you're considering a DNA test for yourself or your family, remember, the truth can be beautiful or devastating, but it's always worth knowing. Subscribe to Story Matrix Hub for more incredible true stories about secrets, justice, and the complicated truths that change lives forever. Remember, sometimes the truth is hiding in a birthday present, waiting to change everything. I'm Story Matrix Hub. Thanks for listening.